Hi, how you doing, dudes? This is Justin here. In this lesson today we're going to be talking about triads, and we're not talking about gang warfare, we're talking about little chords. Now, first of all, for those of you who haven't done your music theory homework, a triad is a three-note chord. Usually contains the root, third and a fifth of a major scale. So in the key of G, for instance, G triad will have the notes G, B and D. Now, to play a triad, most of the big chords that you play at the moment are probably kind of expanded triads, if you like. If we take it like a regular big G chord that you might play, like, you know, your open G chord, then the notes that you're playing there are G, B, D, G, D, G. So there's actually only three notes in the chord that you're playing anyway. But the type of triads that we're going to look at today are ones that actually only use the three notes of the triad. You use them in lots of different circumstances. They're particularly common as kind of like a second guitar part. So hopefully some of you are jamming with your buddies, and you know, if he's playing the chords to whatever song, you need to be able to find a nice way of kind of introducing a second guitar part, and this is absolutely perfect for doing that, and I'm going to give you a few examples of the way to use it. And also it gets used a lot in reggae, so a lot of you have kind of said that you'd like me to kind of demonstrate what I'm going to do before we actually do the lesson. So if I just use, I'm just going to use a little simple chord progression like G, C, G, D. Some of the kind of triad things that you might be doing, you're using G triad, C, G, back to D, or you can do it up here, G, C, back to G, and then to D again. Or you can even do it right up the neck up here, G, C, G, to D. So there's all of these, that would be a kind of good example of a second guitar part, if the first one was doing big chords, G, C, G, D. If somebody was doing that, that's a really, really common kind of chord sequence, and a nice one to practice your triads with. So that would be the first way that it gets used. The second is a lot of reggae stuff. So because the chords are kind of nice and high sounding, like they're kind of crisp, you're using mainly the three strings. At least the type of triads we're going to be looking today are just on the thinnest three strings. So good example, like a reggae kind of thing, but you know. That kind of effect, you know. It's a nice short little chords. Of course, everyone always asks about the sound that I'm using as well, so I may as well get that out of the way early on. I'm using a Stratocaster. It's from the early 90s, nothing particularly fancy, and this is going through the Mesa Boogie Rec Pre with a little bit of delay from the TC Electronic G system, and it's just coming out my studio speakers because my amp is in for repair at the moment. Well, not repair, revalving, and a kind of general service. Anyway, so let's get started and talk about these little triads and actually how you play them now. So what we're going to start off with is looking at the G triad. As I mentioned earlier briefly, we're only going to be looking at triads in this lesson on the thinnest three strings. If you get good with those, it's quite easy to find the other triad shapes on the other strings once you know the theory, which I'm about to explain to you. So if we talk about a G triad, a G major triad, we've got root, third and fifth from the scale, which is the notes G, B and D. Now you can pick a G, B and a D anywhere on the guitar neck, put them together, and you're playing a triad, which would be a G chord, and you could play it instead of a G chord or as well as a G chord, and it will still work and it will still sound cool. So if you wrote down all the G's, B's and D's all over the guitar neck, and then just look at the way that they kind of fall naturally on the thinnest three strings, you end up with three different shapes. And I'm going to do a close-up of this in a sec. The first one will be kind of down here around the kind of the 3rd fret. There's another one up here which is around the 7th fret, and another one right up kind of around the 10th, 12th fret. This is the three kind of triad shapes that we're going to be dealing with first of all. And the big key to these things is making sure you remember where the root note of the triad is, because that's how you're going to locate all your other chords. Now those of you that are using my practical music theory book, you'll find that there's a little section on how to find your own chords. So if you filled that out correctly in the key of G, you should be able to find those triad shapes on the first 3 strings anyway. I'll put some neck diagrams up on the website, so you probably want to go and check out the website to find out exactly where the what the triad shapes are and the correct fingering, although I will be showing you in just a moment. And using that kind of sheet where you've written all the G, B's and D's out, you should be able to find the triad shapes on all of the other strings too. So without further ado, let's go to a close-up now and look at the way that you're going to play these little triads and the 3 different shapes that we're going to talk about today. Okay, here we are. This is our first G triad shape. So this here note, this is the 3rd fret, and that's the note G, that's the root note. Really important that you clock that one first. Now we're going to be using a little bar here with our first finger covering the thinnest 2 strings, and then we're going to reach the 2nd finger over onto the 4th fret, yep, and you're just going to play those 3 notes. So this is a G triad, and making sure you remember that the note there on the thinnest string is the root note. That's where we get the name of the shape, because this shape's going to move up and down the fingerboard, and it's just going to change its name, but that's the shape. So 3, 3, 4. So here we are for the 2nd shape, and hopefully some of you will recognize this as it looks kind of like a D chord. You could definitely refer to this as kind of being a D shape. We're here now, this is the 1st finger on the 7th fret, 2nd finger also on the 7th fret but on the thinnest string, and the 2nd finger, the 3rd finger goes down in the middle, and this note here with the 3rd finger, that's the note G. This is the root note. Yeah, really important that you recognize that this is the root note here on the 8th fret of the 2nd string, the other 2 fingers going down in the 7th fret. And lastly, here we are, this is our last G-shaped triad. Now this one we're starting with the 3rd finger on the 12th fret of the 3rd string, and this is the note G, this is the root note. Then we little finger underneath, also on the 12th fret, and 1st finger down on the 10th fret. Making sure you remember this is the root note. This is going to be really important in just a second, so make sure you get that down. Okay, so we've been through now the 3 different major triad shapes. You need to be able to practice them and move between them. So the first thing that I'd recommend you do is just make sure you can go G, 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 maybe the octave, which is exactly the same as the first one but 12 frets higher, then back down again. Good idea to be able to do that properly first. Make sure again that you're only plucking the thinnest 3 strings. Of course the other ones you just have to leave alone. Yeah, it's not a bad idea to kind of mute them up with the inside of this hand here. If you just rest that on the thicker strings, that'll help keep them quiet as well. If you're going to end up doing this with any distortion, you probably need to do that. So the first exercise then that you should be doing once you've got your 3 shapes down. Now I'm going to use throughout this exercise this little chord progression which goes G, C, G, D. Yeah, it's a really common progression. You'll find lots of songs that use those 3 chords. That's the 1, 4 and 5 chords from the key of G. Also used in a thing called the 3-chord trick. If you're familiar with that, then you'll be familiar with 1, 4 and 5 and probably the chords G, C and D. Of course when it comes to practicing it for real, you could use whatever chord sequence you like. But we're just dealing with these 3 chords in all majors for the time being. So